Well, with us now to review the morning's papers is assistant online editor at The Spectator, Lisa Haseldine, and journalist Benjamin Butterworth. So very good morning to both of you. Nice to see you both. And in fact, we're going to kick off with the story about the New Year's honours. We're just hearing about Liz Truss's resignation list. And the story that you've picked out, first of all, Lisa, is the front page of The Mirror. Their headline is Heroes and Zeros. So what are they getting at here?
Yes, so Liz Truss has released her resignation honours list, and it's come out at the same time as the New Year's honours list. So I think Downing Street were quite keen to try and slip this, I think, essentially out under the radar, try and take a little bit of the heat off the fact that Liz Truss is even being allowed to release this resignation list.
By timing it like that.
Exactly.
To coincide with New Year's honours, so attention is perhaps elsewhere.
Exactly, and also a lot of the people that she's included 11 people within the list, and a lot of them are her allies, people who supported her agenda, her economic agenda, but also before that, people who sort of supported her before she became Prime Minister, when she was sort of coming up as Trade Secretary and that sort of thing. So, yeah, I think there's been some criticism of the fact that she's rewarded personal allies as opposed to necessarily people who others think might be more deserving of some sort of gong.
Well, yes, and some people say that perhaps she shouldn't have had a resignation list at all, given that she had just 49 days in office, which didn't go particularly well, given what happened with her mini-budget and the aftermath. I mean, I don't know what your view on this is, Benjamin.
Yeah, I mean, look, on the one hand, of course, it is, the Tories are right to say there's a precedent that the Prime Minister gets an honours list, but, it's pretty unprecedented to last effectively a month as Prime Minister. And I think the idea that people who were behind her economic agenda, that were developing her thinking on the decisions that made that mini budget, that they get to make laws for life, I think it's highly unlikely that most people will look upon that and think that that is a fair situation. And, Liz Truss is incredibly unpopular, so I can see why Rishi Sunak wanted to hush this up by doing it at the same time as his New Year's honours list, because anybody that doesn't want a Tory government is thrilled every time Liz Truss speaks, because it damages the Tories terribly, because they tanked in the polls under her and have ever since. And I'm not against the House of Lords in principle, but I do think when you have someone that had sort of no democratic credibility, was incredibly unpopular with the electorate, the idea that they get to dish out the benefits of being Prime Minister seems pretty unfair.
And at a time when most people agree that there are too many people in the House of Lords already, and there's a sort of push to try and get the numbers down, 3 people have been added by this Prime Minister.
But I was just going to say, I think the Lords is going to expand a lot, because what I understand is that although there are reports that Keir Starmer wouldn't start appointing new Lords, that he absolutely has to, because he needs a Labour majority, and you're looking at probably 100 new Labour peers when Labour comes to power, if Labour comes to power. So you have a situation where you plausibly could have 1,000 people in there, and I mean, it's completely preposterous, and the rules have to be rewritten in some way. Clearly it can't stop Liz Truss's appointments, but you can't have 1,000 people. There's only about 500 seats anyway.
Well, yeah, imagine the queues for lunch.
If they turn up, that is.
That's true. But aside from that, they say heroes and zeros. There are a lot of heroes in here, and obviously a lot of people get headlines like Shirley Bassey and Michael Eavis, the Glastonbury founder, and lots of very glamorous people. But there are a huge number of people who do a lot of work in their communities that are also being recognised.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's what's been so lovely. I'm afraid his name has now left my brain, but
is it Tony Hudgell you're going to
yes.
talk about? Yeah, the 9-year-old.
Yeah, which is just remarkable. I mean, sort of what an incredibly horrendous start to life, and it's just fantastic to see the campaigning, the work that he's been doing alongside his parents, and it's so lovely to see that recognised. I think that's something that, well, he should be very proud of. And I think
that's right. This is Tony Hudgell, 9-year-old boy. He's got the British Empire Medal. He lost his legs because of abuse by his birth parents, but he's been campaigning to kind of raise awareness of that along with his adoptive family. So, yeah, an extraordinary story there. Let's move on to the Telegraph now. And this time yesterday, we were reporting on a huge attack by Russia on Ukraine, and very swiftly in the early reporting we got details from the Defence Secretary about more arms being sent to Ukraine, and the Telegraph picks up on that, doesn't it?
Yeah, so Grant Shapps has said the UK will send hundreds of air missiles to Ukraine, and the reason for this isn't just the attack that we've just seen, but they're anticipating a new attack in the coming days in the new year ahead of their Christmas in Russia. And And also, it looks like this could be a definitive winter in this campaign, because the US is refusing to back through Congress the $61 billion of support for Ukraine. The EU is having its support package blocked by Hungary, and the understanding is that Russia has seen this coming and has been stockpiling its missiles and is going to try and confront Ukraine in the air quite aggressively. And so that's why Grant Shapps in the UK is sending this at the moment, because it looks like that diplomatic, democratic issues that are happening in the EU and the US are really constraining Ukraine's ability to fight in the coming months, and that Russia is going to distract from the front line where it's having very minor benefits and try and take them on in the air and then use that to get in and try and gain land. So I think the next couple of months could really see a shift in what's going on there.
Yeah, and Russia perhaps taking advantage of the fact that a lot of global attention has been on the Israel-Hamas war as well. Let's move us on to Lisa, to The Guardian's front page story. Their headline there is, courts and NHS will not recover until the 2030s. It's a very bleak message there. So what's behind it?
It is fairly bleak. I think to a degree, though, it's not totally a surprise. This is something that Labour have been talking about for quite a while as well, saying that they've been quite frank with the fact that actually for the package of reforms and sort of policies that they would want to bring in, it probably would take them 2 terms to fully implement that and for there to be proper sort of visible change, tangible change for people. I think it's frankly it is depressing. I think people are already feeling the crunch. The cost of living crisis is really biting for people, and there is still incredibly long waiting lists in the NHS, the courts, as this article is saying, and even just things like schools, the waiting list to get onto schools, the sort of demands placed on that. So I think Labour have been fairly honest, saying that that's something that they would be dealing with. I think we would also have to see what the Tories want to offer on that.
And we have this problem that you've got this incredible backlog, arguably through mismanagement, certainly through COVID, and yet at the same time there's no money. And neither party is saying that they're going to spend billions of extra that they don't have. The Labour Party is terrifying of making pledges because it's sort of its Achilles heel with the electorate. They say, Labour will spend all the money, there won't be any left. So they're terrified of doing that. And so they have quite a serious problem that they're going to come in probably with a majority, probably with about 400 seats, the polls would indicate. So expectations will be very high when you have a landslide like that. And yet they've got to try and solve these problems without spending much more money. And, I certainly don't know the answer, but I wonder whether the public is prepared for the fact that the kind of disruption that we've got used to in recent years isn't going to go away tomorrow.
No, lots of questions hanging in the air, and in what could be an election year, be interesting to see what answers we get. But for the moment, we're out of time. You will be back in the next hour, but thanks both for the moment.
Thank you very much.